These particle board bookshelves have served us well for 15 years, but my wife says a new addition necessitates new furniture. And who am I to argue? The new built in bookshelves and cabinets are gargantuan. And as we all know, big furniture means bigger problems, particularly for my back because everything I build has to be carried upstairs. So let's get building. Until you upgrade to a sliding table saw, which I haven't, a track saw is the best way to cut down sheets of plywood. And a good right angle guide makes the job infinitely faster. I cut to rough size with the track saw and then final dimensions on the table saw because a track saw can be accurate, but a table saw is consistent. And that's the most important thing. With the plywood panels for the cabinet boxes cut, I set the blade height to cut the rabbets for the back panels. A scrap of plywood then sets the fence distance so there's room for the nailer strips. Then I cut for an hour or so. Because sometimes I forget that I'm not a superhero, I tried to cut a full quarter-inch plywood sheet on my table saw, realized I was going to hurt myself, and pulled out some rollers to help. A lot of trouble to go through because I was too lazy to get my track saw out again to cut the back panels. Time for some Craig jigs. The shelf pin jig made quick work of the shelf holes for the two end cabinets and all of the bookshelf side panels. This is easy enough as long as you remember that the pin has two sides that are different sizes. I did not. So I screwed up the alignment a little bit, but that's a problem for future John. Next up is the pocket hole jig. Pocket holes are my favorite way to install the spacers and nailer strips in all the boxes. Easy, quick, and almost no thought required. My kind of tool. Okay, look. Yes, I'm one of those asshole YouTubers that we all hate with a Festool Domino. In my defense, I did buy it used and relatively inexpensively, so I like to use it. It makes assembly so much easier and faster, but it's absolutely not a necessary tool. If you have one, though, here's a look at my favorite way to do vertical plunges. These boxes are big, so they were a bit tricky to assemble and pull square. But with a lot of right angle clamps, some long clamps, some doubled up clamps, and some standing on my workbench, I was able to get it done, though I could only glue up a few at a time. In order to procrastinate carrying the cabinet boxes upstairs, I painted the two visible sides. Actually, I accidentally painted one visible side and one hidden side, so I had to paint a third, really second, visible side once I figured that out. Oh well. Should have labeled better, I guess. I like installing cabinets on a detached Toekick because it's easier to level. Miter all the visible corners so you don't see the ugly plywood ends. Also, consider if you can actually build the Toekick as one piece. I fortunately realized I couldn't because there's no way I'd be able to get a 10-foot long piece up the stairs and around the corner. So mine is in two sections. A decent laser level is nearly a must-have for cabinet installation. Then I planed down a metric ton, or so it seemed, of poplar and built 1.5 inch face frames. This is another great job for pocket holes. I used poplar because it's more affordable than maple, and since I'm painting it, you won't see the grain. Glue and brad nails are the way to go when you're painting the frame. A little wood filler, and then some touch-up paint, and no one will ever notice. Drawer slides are much easier to install before the counters go in, so guess what I did next? Undermount Blum drawer slides are great. I just always make sure that I'm installing them square to the face, not square to the inside of the box. I only had to learn that lesson once. Check out my bathroom vanity video if you want to watch me learn it. Leave a comment with a woodworking lesson that you only had to learn once, and while you're down there, maybe consider liking and subscribing to keep up to date with my future projects. With the cabinets and face frame finally out of my workshop, I could move on to the maple counters. Originally, I'd wanted one long counter, but as with the Toekick, that would be tough to get up the stairs. I could have split it in half, but we decided on thirds so that each counter seam would line up perfectly with a book seam. Consistency. Also, easier on my back. Dominoes again, not out of necessity, but out of convenience. I routed out some slots for countertop connector bolts to pull these counters together, and added some dominoes in the ends of the middle seams to keep them from shifting up and down over time. Finally, I also cut out a hole for a drop-in power outlet because we'll be losing access to the power outlet along the wall, and we want to be able to charge devices as part of the built-ins. I also scribed the one visible edge of the counter to the wall to avoid any unsightly gaps. Then I finished with a couple coats of Osmo hard wax oil, which is one of my favorite finishes. If you watch much woodworking on YouTube, you've probably seen Cam from Blacktail Studios and his use of N3 Nano top coat. My wife got me some for Christmas this year, but I haven't found the right time to use it, so I've ignored it. This seemed like the perfect project to try it out. If I screw up, I'm the only one that has to see it. But honestly, there wasn't really an opportunity for screwing up. It was super easy to apply, though it's more steps than I'd originally thought. It turned out great though, and it seems like it'll provide a lot of protection. With the counters installed, I could lift the bookcases into place, making sure that the seams between them aligned with the seams of the counters. I test fit the shelves as well, and shimmed a couple of them to make up for the misalignment with the shelf pin jig from earlier. Of course, we can't forget to drop in the outlet. I also added a spacer panel to the outside shelf, scribed to the wall. I needed this so that the face frame wouldn't hang in front of the shelves and trap books behind it, which I find very annoying. Speaking of face frames, next I built and brought up the face frame for the bookcases and installed them the same way I did the lowers. There are 100 videos of building drawers, so I won't bore you, but here's a 15-second montage of me making mine. Doors and drawer faces were next. These are poplar as well, and I'd already milled the lumber down to size when I did the face frames, so all I had to do now was turn them into the doors and drawer faces. I cut a groove to hold 1/4 inch plywood panels down the length of each board and then cut tenons that would fit into those grooves with the crosscut sled. The doors just took regular 1/4 inch panels that I glued into place. For the drawer faces, I used 1/2 inch ply and rabbited around the back to flush fit those into the grooves. This way I didn't have a gap in the back of the drawer face when I installed the drawer handles. I could have solved this problem by gluing a second panel onto the back of the drawer face, but I wanted to try this method. I'm still not sure which one I prefer. In the future, it'll probably just depend on the material I have. Recycling, after all. Time for some more Craig jigs. First is the concealed hinge jig. Makes drilling out the cups fast and easy. I used two different style concealed hinges for the doors because one side of the face frame had an overhang and the other side was flush. Easy enough. For the drawer faces, I used my favorite installation method. Align all the gaps, put a couple of screws through the handle holes. Then you screw in through the drawer boxes and then drill out the handle holes and then install the handles. The issue was I still had to paint these, so I didn't want to screw them into the drawers yet. So I thought I'd save time and drill out the handle holes now and use those to align everything after painting. Nothing lines up right because bolt holes are oversized and have a lot of slop in them. They're not meant to fit back in perfectly. So I just decided to paint them now and I'd figure out how to install them after they were done.
All right. So I made a few mistakes when installing the drawer fronts before paint, and now I'm really, really struggling to get these drawer fronts installed. So I had my wife look up crazy ways to install drawer fronts, and she found an idea that I think we're going to try. If it works, I will link you to the original video. But for now, what we're going to do is take the screws that are designed to hold the drawer front in place and poke them through the front of the drawer.
The idea here is that then you can align your drawer where it needs to be and press really hard against the screws, and that will make an indent where the screws need to be. And then you can just screw the drawer in right into those indents, and you'll have it perfectly lined up. It actually worked really great. It took a bit of finagling to get the bolt holes to line back up, but eventually everything fit perfectly, as if we'd planned it all this way. The only thing left to do was fill it up with books and other stuff. This is by far the biggest piece I've ever made, and it about maxed out my shop's capability. There's an idea in woodworking that a big box is no different to make than a little box, and it's true on some levels, but so very much not true on so many others. Weight being the primary. But heavy as these pieces were, and as much precious floor space as they consumed for weeks in my shop, I got it done, and I couldn't be happier with the final product.